This is a good moment to say hello to you guys if you are on Twitter around the world. There are, of course, many of you listening to us in different time zones. Just whilst we sound a little sleepy, perhaps, you might be in the middle of your day. But please come and say hello to us on Twitter, at Ben Constey for myself, at Lovejoy for Peter Dumbreck. And which handle do you want to be using, Jamie, or are you not on Twitter?
I'm on, yes, I'm on J. Campbell-Walter, I think.
You think? Using it a lot, Mr. Campbell-Walter, then. But do ask us questions. We'll do our best to answer those questions. It's always a good moment, I think, in 24-hour racing to have a chat and define the finer points as we go through the remainder of the night. We've still got about 2 hours of night officially. Sun comes up at 7:43. And it will obviously get a little bit lighter before that point, and we'll see a very heavy sky and dew. Not the fog that perhaps was forecast, but it is certainly heavy with moisture out there right now. As Ritzy take a bit of a break and literally snatch half an hour's sleep before their next stint. Yellow flag flying at the first chicane as Charlie Hollings has managed to get Red River Sport back to the pits. The tyre is just about still together, but he's done a good job not to completely destroy the rear end on that, because it's very, very close to falling apart.
Yeah, tricky one when you have a puncture. If you drive too fast, the tyre delaminates, and if it starts disintegrating and flapping around, it just destroys the bodywork, the floor, the diffuser, can do the rear wing, especially on a rear tyre. And the tyre only takes a matter of seconds to change, whereas the whole rear end of the car, the floor, the bodywork, etc., can take a good 20 minutes.
There is the evidence and remnants of the accident that befell the car a few hours ago. Absolutely destroyed that rear left panel. Lots and lots of duct tape. The car looking very, very second-hand. It had a huge frontal impact in the night, finishing actually our free practice session on Thursday evening. So they rebuilt the whole front end of that car across the night and across Friday, actually.
Those mechanics have worked pretty hard
already,
so
yeah.
Between them and the IDEC mechanics, I would say those teams have done the most work to their cars.
A question on the Car 70, which is MR Racing. That retired when I was still awake, but I have not remembered why. Left front suspension failure for that car. So T-Burn 21, there is your answer. Garage door down, it is out the race, and it had left front suspension failure on that car. Yellow flag now is down at the second of the Mulsanne chicanes. So we don't know what the yellow flag was for at the first chicane, which came out a few minutes ago. It cleared pretty quickly. This one seems to be hanging around a bit more, and that is the reason why. It is the Graf car of James Allen pointing the wrong direction. Let's see why. Oh, just lost it.
That car was leading, if we think back to the beginning of the race.
Yeah. And James Allen was aboard that car when it was a leading. It did a great job, he did, to hold off some incredibly experienced competitors. Really ruffled the feathers of Philippe Albuquerque, who just simply expected for it not to be there when they were fighting in the first couple of hours. But now, with the cycle of drivers in that car, you know, it's an endurance race with 3 drivers of 3 separate talents and speeds and feelings. Back in with James Allen now. A little mistake, but it didn't cost him too much. He'll carry on with that. And that is actually on a new tyre as well. So I don't know if he's just come out the pits or it's been a couple of laps, but his last pit stop was a full service.
Richard Leitz running 4th in GT Pro. Porsche not really had the pace last lap, 3:54. Leaders last lap was 3:52. So still the Porsche struggling. I think it tends to be their straight line speed, maybe the speed out of the corners. Ferrari and Aston Martin pretty level, swapping position it seems every pit stop.
There was a bit of speculation early on that some of the cars that were struggling with straight line speed carrying a bit more downforce, perhaps aiming for the wetter conditions in the race, and that was going to help them with stability when we got the rain. But for the moment, Porsche's weather forecast says no rain at all.
So you're actually seeing the lights of the second place car ahead, but Richard Leet is a good couple of laps down, or at least one lap down. Yeah, a couple of laps.
Yeah, 2 laps, yeah. Pitches the car into the first part of the Porsche curves. That's the most fearing part of it, because the barrier there with no runoff area. We saw Alexander West go heavy into that wall. Thomas Laurent nearly did in the Signatech, but
it's probably my favourite part of the circuit. That it's fantastic to drive so quick through there. Of course, it used to be a lot more narrow. You used to really feel constricted by the walls, but gradually, as time's gone on and safety measures have improved, the walls have been moved a little bit further back. If you remember, there's been some massive crashes through there as well. Loic Duval in the Audi springs to mind. When was that? 4 or 5 years ago?
In practice, so we never got a clear video of it. Mr. McNish has seen one privately from the Commissaire race control camera, but there were no cameras at that point of circuit to capture Loic's crash.
Mr. McNish has crashed through there. I remember in 2012, and I thought, oh, great. I don't want to wish bad on Mr. McNish because I knew he was okay, but I thought, all right, because I was in the same race, and I thought, all right, we'll pick up a position on him here. They got that Audi back, they repaired the car in about 10 minutes, and they still kept the lead over us as we were in a privateer P1 car.
Hello to Australia, Bunbury in Western Australia, Finley. Is still with us. Plenty of you in the much more civilized time zones right now. Michael Zed, he's in Australia after just 3 hours of sleep. What was the I'm afraid we're not going to be able to answer your question, but once Graham Goodwin comes back into the box, we'll get that answer. When the last time was a car got disqualified for outside assistance? The tricky one, actually, we're talking about the 37 car that got restarted by the marshals, and they fixed the car, having had major electrical issues.
Well, he'd been handed something from outside the circuit, hadn't he?
Is that the reason why?
Had given him a part or something to help get the car going, to get it back to the pits.
Yeah.
And been spotted doing that, and then they got disqualified.
You can have advice, but you can't have parts or tools.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, all these cars will have a tiny little toolkit in them, which will be a little bag rolled up, screwdriver, maybe a little hammer, a couple of spanners. There's also a little special tool which unclips the bodywork, and sometimes when you have a contact with the wall, you might have dislodged your front end or rear end. Here you can see them here. To change it, there's a couple of clips above the front wheels, and then those 2 tools that go in, that comes off, and then the new one goes on. You see the tools in the top there. Once it's located into the tub, and it's a very quick change.
Didn't look like the 3 car had any damage to the nose of its car. It may well be that there's a slightly different setup on that nose.
The drivers could have been complaining of setup, and they just decided to make some changes, some downforce changes on board with the 22. Now, we saw the 32. It's just come back out of the pits. That was not a scheduled stop. He's only done 6 laps, and as we know, we can do 10 laps in a stint with these cars. So 22 takes the lead again.
A lot of oil on that screen, isn't there?
Yeah, we heard him a few laps ago complaining about it.
And maybe that's why they stopped.
Yes. because the oil was being thrown out by the 32 car as he went by the 22 car.
Yeah.
Didn't see any kind of top-up going on, though, on that pit stop. But we cut to it slightly later, perhaps, when maybe an extra bit of servicing had already been done. We've got Hayley Evans back in the pit lane, so she will go and investigate. And here is the radio from Philippe Albuquerque, who's now back in the lead of the race, but probably struggling with vision.
Screen is really bad.
Yeah, you can see that, can't you? It's a right mess. And it really will be blurring his vision. It looks awful from where we are.
It won't be quite as bad as the camera always makes it seem a bit worse, but yeah, that's not going to be very pleasant to drive like that, and you know, it takes a bit of getting used to.
You know the situation when you've been driving through the continent, it's been a hot day, you've got plenty of bugs all over your windscreen, and then somebody hits the windscreen wiper and smears it across the screen, and it just is horrible until you can get into a service station and give it a proper scrub.
I tell you what, it'd be an absolute nightmare for him if it started to rain.
Oh yeah.
Absolute nightmare. Oil and water on a windscreen, he would not be able to turn his wiper on. And lots of rookies, something that you never really think of because it's not something in the book, but a rookie would turn his wiper on and I can't see anything. So it's...
And you're talking about bits that the cars will carry. Back in your day, you carried mobile phones even when mobile phones weren't a thing.
Well, I think they still do because they carry two things: a phone and a longer, or it's an extension of their radio kit. So you see them plugging in the pit stops. There's an extension so that they can remain on the radio and walk around the car with a sort of 3 or 4 meter curly-whirly telephone cable type thing, and they can receive instructions then on their headset.
Let's go down into Kazuki Nakijima's 8 Toyota, leading the race by a lap. Okay, coming into the pits, pit confirm. Now, what is pit confirm? We always hear it in all different forms of racing. He's being told that he's coming into the pits, but he has to send a signal back to the engineers?
Just to confirm you've heard the message.
Okay.
That's all it is.
It's simply a signal to say, I'm good, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, so they'll say, box this lap, and they expect, if they don't get a response within a few seconds, 5 seconds or something, they'll repeat it again.
Yeah. So maybe this is more of a clue as to what they might do to the car. Maximize kinetic. And then Kazuki saying, I'm in the pits already. Here he comes then, the leader of this 24 hours of Le Mans with over 15 hours gone. And this will be a potentially full service.
Well, Kazuki's halfway through his stint at the moment. He's done 2 stints. He's going to do another 2.
Okay.
11 laps per stint.
There are tyres sitting on the apron, but whether they actually end up on the car, we'll have to wait and see.
You'll find there'll always be a set there just in case.
Yeah, if they spot something on the tyre that the driver didn't feel.
There we go.
Getting tyres.
So a double stint on those Michelins. And is it going to be a full set? We've seen some teams doing just left sides.
That's been only really the Porsche, hasn't it? The GT Pro Porsches. You often see every stop, if they're not planning to change tyres, a Michelin man or a Goodyear man will go around looking top of those big holes and maybe take temperatures with a little probe, and they give the thumbs up, which means you don't have to change it. And they do that whilst the fuel's going in, of course.
For the number 8 car, there's no point in taking any risk.
No, exactly.
You know, they've got enough tyres, they may as well use them.
But it was a 1:20 stop, so that seems quite fast for a full tyre service, and I think we only saw the left side tyres being done there. Now, a tyre graphic will confirm once it gets updated with all the information that it picks up when those cars leave the pits, although it has been wrong already. We did have a look earlier on, and it suggested that they had an issue with the front left, but the team confirming that they had not. On board with Signatech Alpine, and now they were locked in a battle last time we checked with them, and at the moment they are 1 minute and 22 seconds off 8th position, with René van der Zande in the Dragon Speed 27 car to win that position. They were battling with Cool Racing, but Antoine Borger's got up to 7th position and Signatech down to 9th, so that was a couple of hours ago, mind you. Thank you very much to Desert Jester, who is joining us, and Philip Pond, who is also on the beers, keeping himself awake. Now, here's one for delving into your computer, Peter. Do we know how many hours the bronze drivers in GT Am have done from the top 5?
Let me have a look. So,
another one from Kaz as Peter works on his numbers. This one's an easy one for Jamie Campbell-Walter. What is the small canister they seem to pour into the car at sometimes during pit stops?
It's oil. So it's a pressurized canister, just for a quick fill, basically, rather than gravity, and they're just topping up the oil. So the engineers at the back of the pit garage will be, there'll be some guys from the engine department who will be keeping an eye on pressures, water pressure, oil pressure, and the minute they start to see a drop, these cars under high G loads in the Porsche curves, they will see a slight drop in the oil pressure. That is a sign that the car is slightly low on oil, and what they'll do is have preset determined sort of times more or less where they add the oil, and they're just putting in like half a litre to a litre. It's not very much.
Of course, the other bottles that are there is a driver drinks bottle that can be replaced as well. And we'll see on some of our onboard cameras, you can see the silver canister that gets replaced sometimes.
right, I've got an answer to your question. You know, the only team that isn't really using its AM driver in GT AM at the moment is the leading car. Hence their big lead.
Yeah, so he's not wanting to drive in the dark, so they are going to be disadvantaged later on, and
that being Sally Ulick.
Yeah, and then Augusto Farfus and Ross Gunn will come into play. Yeah,
because Paul Dell'Anna, their gentleman driver, is in the car right now.
Yeah, and that car was leading, let's not forget. The Aston Martin Racing one of Dell'Anna was leading, now a minute and 32 behind. Dell'Anna is the bronze. So, and he's doing a great job. I mean, a 3:58 that lap is a respectable lap time. You know, this guy's a very wealthy businessman, good driver, nearly won the race, WEC champion, of course, as well, and sort of respected as one of the best bronzes actually in GT. So. He's pretty good, and he's a big lad as well.
Oh yes.
But he's a super nice guy and actually a very good driver.
On board with Paul Lafarge. Now that doesn't seem right to me. The strobing disco lights going on inside the IDEX Sport machine. Can't see exactly where that's coming from. Doesn't look like it's coming from the front left, which usually would be a G sensor for if there was an impact on the car, it would turn on. So another stock part from the electronics manufacturer that is faulty. We saw it with Sophia Flörsch in practice. Her race control screen was flicking on and off, but that must be horrible for Lafarge to have that flashing consistently inside the cockpit, effectively in his eye line as well, Peter.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't enjoy that. I mean, once you focus outside the car, in the distance, you're not seeing it so badly, but it certainly would have an effect.
Where's that flashing light coming from?
Well, I think it might be the automatic FIA safety sensor for if there's an impact of over a certain G. We saw it on the Alexander West Ferrari when he went into the wall. Comes on and basically tells the marshals that the car has experienced a high G-force. On board with Felipe Albuquerque. 45 seconds to the good now at the moment. And how is he getting on with that horrible screen?
Jesus Christ. Behind you. Oh, okay. Where did he go? Oil. It is a big difference if it just stop now. Well, we should do one more if you can. Just do one more. Okay, there's I do one more.
Felipe really sounds like he's desperate to get out of that car, doesn't he? End of a triple stint. A little confused as well as to where his opponent is.
Well, he didn't. Obviously, there was that unscheduled stop by the 32 car, and I don't think Felipe knew about it. So he thought the 32 was still in front of him.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, about engineers just keeping drivers informed. He's got no idea. He can't see the car.
Can't see much.
There's no information for him. And unless the team and the engineers inform him, your sister car's had a problem, he's pitted out of sync.
Oh, no!
Nearly tangled with a GT car, but...
and he's coming into the pits.
So he's got no idea. So he's just like, where's the other, where are the other cars? Tell me. You're doing a great job, mate. You're in the lead. So
the engineer said as well, you should do one more if you can.
Yeah.
Sounds as though he's going to stay in for one more stint.
No, I think it was one more lap. He said, will it make a difference if I come in now? And the engineer said, you really should do one more if you can. Now, that message could have been replayed.
Could have been one lap ago. Yeah.
You can see if he's done the full stint on that.
He's unplugged his lid, so he's getting out.
And this, now look at the windscreen that desperately needs to be cleaned. This tear-off comes off.
That car has also got an internal flashing light.
That's a pink internal light, though.
Yeah.
Is that just for in the pits, though?
It did seem to come on when they hit the pit speed limiter.
Phil Hansen getting in. He's the silver driver in the car, but a very good one.
So yes, I remember Hansen getting in the car last time in the darkness. Yeah. So this is his second time of driving in the dark. We should see...
He's going to drive into the daylight.
He will drive into the daylight, which is a nice feeling.
Yes.
And it's uplifting because it's like, well, it feels like you've almost made it.
Yes.
You haven't, but it kind of has that feeling about it.
Well, daylight here at 7:30 and the race finishing at 2:30. There's a much less race left.
When it is daylight, yeah. Normally it's sort of 5 in the morning, isn't it? And you've got to go till 3:30, so still a long way to go. But how long have we got? 8.5 hours to go. Bear in
that's
mind,
weird. That would be daylight in a usual June race.
Yeah, we would be daylight now. 8.5 hours is still a WEC race, plus 2.5 hours to go, so anything can happen still.
Having a look at Jota doing a full service on the 38. They're the only other car, other than the two United Autosports machines, that are on the lead lap for LMP2. And they have had a few maladies, so they're slightly off touching distance right now. Tyres changed.
New Goodyears going on. Anthony Davidson getting in.
Really, really good feelings for Goodyear to know that they are well up there. Panis Racing also using the Goodyear tyre in 4th position. So despite being new to Le Mans, they are developing something which is equal, if not better, depending on the conditions, to the Michelin tyre already.
Yep, and right up there, able to pick up the pieces if United stumble. Jota and Panis, 3rd and 4th place.
Anthony Davidson with huge experience here at Le Mans in LMP1 for Peugeot, for Toyota. He's not taken an overall victory, though. He's missed that accolade, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been in two teams, 2 cars that really coulda, woulda, shoulda won it and didn't. So he's been unfortunate. He's, you know, the years I remember him being super quick and just being that little bit unlucky, the car being unlucky, and him not getting the win.
First visited Le Mans in 2003, driving a GTS Pro Drive.
With Darren Turner, I believe. Yeah.
That would make sense.
In fact, Kelvin Burt was in that car as well.
Next, after his stint in Formula 1, 2009 for Aston Martin. And then joined Peugeot for their campaigns in 2010 and 11 before switching to Toyota in 2012. But
I think they're the eyes of James Hansen. Oh, the problem with that door.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the first issue was that he got his glove stuck in the door, and then he wasn't massively confident that it was shut.
He's triple, double checking that.
And now, 32 in again. Is that a full stint? That doesn't seem right, that they're back on to sync with each other.
Oh, Graham Goodwin's been over messing with my computer here.
Best result, by the way, for Anthony Davidson at Le Mans was P2 in 2013. He got one other podium, only one other podium at Le Mans. For all of that experience over those years, that's quite remarkable.
So that is, it does seem a bit strange. So he's done a 6 and a 5 lapper. So when he came in, probably to check that oil issue, they didn't refuel him.
Okay.
And they didn't give him any more tires, and it was a quick in and out, and that is the resumption of his.
Yeah, but would you not? If you've gone and filled everything up, you brought the car into the pits, why don't you fill it up with fuel and at least do a full stint?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
So can they only do half a stint with the issue with this oil? That, well, we're speculating about the issue with the oil. We saw it on Albuquerque's windscreen.
We'll know in 10 laps time.
Well, we'll know in 5 laps time if he has to come in again.
True, yeah.
And that's certainly one for Haley Edmonds in the pits to go and investigate if United are forthcoming with the information. But only able to do half a stint at the moment. Something that we saw from G-Drive by Algarve. That was a fuel pickup problem for them early on in the race. They have now retired, by the way. But concern then for what effectively is our class leader in LMP2 right now. But with all of these extra pit stops, is definitely handing the advantage to the 22 of Phil Hansen. At the moment they could manage it, and they do have a full lap advantage over Panis Racing in 4th position. So the 32 would only really lose 1 position if it had to do a slightly longer stop. But ultimately, if it is an oil leak, an oil leak's not an easy thing to fix, regardless of where it is.
Yeah, it all depends on what kind of oil it is. If it's oil from the engine, then yeah, we've got a problem. But it could be a fluid from another place. But we would see smoke out of the back of the car if it was oil from the engine. So it's probably not that.
Could have overfilled it, couldn't they, when they put oil in, maybe, and the oil's just come out the breather, because didn't they follow each other out the pit lane?
Yep.
And he had it for the whole stint, so...
Yes, but he's only done 2 5-lap stints since.
A 6 and a 5.
Hayley was on her way to United, wasn't she?
I hope so.
Yeah. If she can hear us.
There's one thing going to the garage, there's another thing getting information for the team. That's it's the second challenge. The easy bit is walking to the garage and poking your head in. The hard bit is asking the team to find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, she just said she's at Toyota, so we bit of fitness for her. She can go back up to United in a minute. Right, I've had a wonderful time with you guys. 4 hours on the mic, and I'm going to sleep.
No way.
Enjoy. Which means Graham Goodman joins us and we can get super technical with all of your questions
good
on
morning.
Twitter. That is a good morning to you, Graham. Let's go down to Hayley, who has some information on Filipe Albuquerque out of the car. A little bit by the end seemed confused, Hayley, because he was all over the place by the end of his stint.
That's correct, Ben. So I spoke to Filipe and he said first stint absolutely fine, second stint same. However, in the third stint it was actually his teammates in car number 32 that were actually losing oil. And he said it became dangerous out there and he just wanted to get back in because he didn't feel safe. So that's the reason why, as we all know, there's a big United battle going on up front. But, you know, he said he's just going to keep on pushing, and regardless of who is in front or behind him.
Yeah, the question mark is, though, is that an issue that can be managed or fixed at United Autosports for the 32 car? An issue for Filipe Albuquerque to have the oil on his windscreen. More concerning is if that's a problem with the 32 that's unfixable.
22.
32 has got the issue.
But Albuquerque's not in. Sorry.
Albuquerque was behind.
Oh, I see. My apologies. I heard
covered in oil.
Right.
Because he was directly behind coming out the pits and basically did a whole stint with his windscreen covered in oil. It was horrific.
Lovely.
And Hayley's saying that he felt it was a bit dangerous at times.
He did complete it, though.
He did complete it.
I mean, he had a little bit of a reassurance needed from the pits that he really does need to complete this stint.
Yeah.
And, he did oblige. He's now out of the car. He can have a bit of a rest. Phil Hansen back in the car.
But, attention on United Autosports at the moment just to see if they can get that 32 car back to a full 10-lap stint rather than the 5 and the 6 that we've seen them do over the last 2 stints.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello there, Graham.
No, my apologies. I gather you may have heard on mic Jamie just briefing me on what's been going on for the 3 or 4 hours I've been attempting to sleep in a cardboard box.
Have you managed it?
Sleeping in a cardboard box? Yeah, a little of that, but I think I've got my head around most of what's gone on. And pretty clearly it's been an eventful last 3 or 4 hours. If they're not very good sort for some, and in particular the overall tone of this race for the number 7 car. The cartoon anvil has fallen again.
We're having lots of chats with Australia right now.
Are we? Anybody in particular?
Enjoying us, our stream on Twitter. Chris Sutherland says, any word from the drivers if a lack of night life, I'm not sure if he means nightlife or night running, trackside has made it harder this year during the night, or business as usual? Watching stateside? Well done, boys. Nightlife as in campsite fun?
I suspect it's that, because we talked, didn't we, in the night practice, Peter, about this lack of ambient light. Because we've not got some of the lighting at some of the corners, there's no fans out there in the campgrounds. So at certain parts of this track, the ambient light is less than they would have been expecting in previous years.
That's right. Yeah, it's all the whole race is that little bit darker this year. Yeah, it's a strange situation. I've kind of got used to it now that there's no, normally there's that big wheel sitting out there, isn't there?
Well, not there anymore. It's over down there.
But at this
you can
time,
see it out of our window.
At 6 a.m. in the morning, I would be expecting to walk into the booth and sun's already up.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's just pitch black out there.
I've just realised something. We missed all the fireworks during the midnight hours. You usually get fans throwing fireworks from the campsites and illuminating the sky. And to the point that the lack of fans, we didn't have any fireworks. We had Bruno van der Sticks talking to the fans that weren't here, but we didn't get any ACO fireworks. We should have had them put some on. For the ambience.
Where have we had fireworks this year?
Bahrain usually have fireworks at the end of the race.
There's been fireworks somewhere this year. It's too early to think about these things. But
I used to love those.
It's still got the atmosphere. Waking up and walking back towards the track and noise levels rising. And always good that you're not hearing too many occasions when the track falls quiet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's always the time when you wake up, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel right when it goes quiet. There's been a question come in, quite an easy one to answer, actually. Can't find who's been asking it right now.
Easy for Graham, anyway.
No, Jeffrey Kanza says, who makes the decision on retirements? And you do have to lodge or declare your intention.
The god of racing luck.
Yeah. You have to declare that you are retiring. You can't just stop.
You do. There is paperwork that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, there's some visual clues, like a car coming in with no wheels on it, or, you know, upside down and on fire. We've mercifully not had any of those. But the garage door down is a very visual clue. That team will not be rejoining the race. But there is paperwork that must be filed. And that's the point at which you will see the timing screens change, and we get retired against that. And you know, I know we've been wrong-footed at least once during this race with the number 88 car, and the fantastic effort from Thomas Preining to get the car back from trackside after 3 hours. But yes, it is paperwork that's finally required.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
So the answer is team manager ultimately.
Thank you, Jeffrey Kanza, though.
Absolutely.
For asking the question twice as well.
Yeah, Fee Miller reminds me, by the way, from the press room. Good morning, Fee. COTA. There apparently were some fireworks at COTA earlier this year, which was the last pre-lockdown race meeting that the WEC had before we came back to racing at Spa.
Also, Graham, can you remind us how many hours the ARM drivers need to do in the GT class?
I think it's 6. I think it's a minimum 6.
Jamie did think it was 6. So
I think it's 6 in every class. Now, I'll have a quick look. There is a very neat little graphic that I can drag out in a moment. That was what, by the way, I was so rudely peering over your shoulder earlier and trying to find out through the strategy laptop, and can't quite find the right button at the moment. But we'll grab that and sort out who's going to be short of them. Because the key to this, and one of the things we were just talking about off mic, was in the GTM class in particular, which gentlemen drivers have been basically pounding around here in the full darkness, and I gather Paul Dadalana has been doing a fine job of that.
So it's only really Sally Ulick that seems like he needs to get back in the car fairly soon to get some hours in. Which
therefore is going to just tip the balance in a different direction to maybe where we've been so far. And if we've got cars on the same lap, and we do.
So Ross Gunn has taken over the 98 car from Paul Dallalana. So he's on a very similar pace to Johnny Eastwood. I know Johnny Eastwood because he's the uncle of Charlie Eastwood, and I used to race against him in karts in 1986.
Good grief.
So it was strange for me to see the name Eastwood come through, and I thought, I wonder. And then I met his uncle at Goodwood with Charlie, and we remembered each other.
Motorsport is the most incredibly family-based tribal thing, and you find that constantly, don't you?
32, Job Van Otero has just managed to do his fastest lap of the race so far, closing in on the 22 of Philip Hansen.
Okay, so the gap to you is 8 seconds. His last lap was 32.0.
Yeah, and it's no longer, is it 8 seconds? It's down to 7.3 now.
I'm not sure he wants to hear that, but well, he probably does want to hear it, but he wants to go a bit quicker himself, I'm sure. But you know, the important thing to do is to run your own race. They've both had their little issues through the race. They're both on different strategies.
Oh dear, we've got a onboard on the 22 car. We've got the old filmic effect of slightly wobbly cam. You can actually see it on the right-hand side there, just above the FIA screen, wobbling around and providing us a very cinematic wobble cam. Top Gear would be proud.
So the answer on minimum driving time with, as always, our thanks to Fiona Miller, is indeed 6 hours is the minimum. Frankly, whichever class you are, and whichever grade you are. Maximum driving time, that's actually 14 hours is maximum. Minimum time, 6.
So you could actually get away with 2 drivers if you ended up...
It's been done in extremis in the modern era from memory twice. Once was the Bicolis car, which was effectively Andre Lottera's arrival on the scene. When one of his co-drivers fell off the pit wall on his way to the grid and dislocated his shoulder. So that meant that I think it was...
That was when they were running Audis, right?
That's right. That was Andre Lottera, and I think Charles Wolfsman Jr. was that year. And the other one was actually, well, rather oddly, it was...
I know what you're going to say, or if you're not going to say it, I'm going to tell you it. Because I do know this. It was Jeroen Blikkemolen was the driver, and Ben... No, who's the tall one that was his teammate?
What? In what car?
It was in an American...
It was a Pro Speed Porsche, and the option had to be taken. I think it was Brett Curtis had been injured in a shunt up at Dunlop, and they had to start with 2 drivers.
Yes.
I've got a feeling Cooper McNeil was one.
Cooper McNeil, you are right. And he's tall, isn't he?
Yes, he is, very tall.
There you go.
And they actually did pretty well. They ended up getting into the race. To do this, they had to put the car into GTE Pro, not GTAM. And to do that, because of the way the driving time worked, and I have a feeling they finished something like 5th in class.
Because I was looking through pictures on my phone, and I came across this picture of Jeroen Blikkemolen, and I took it before the race, and I said, I'm going to take a picture of you after the race, because you're going to be driving a lot of time in this race.
That's it, there you go, so it's spot on.
Another fastest lap for Job van Uiteren in 29.616.
Wow.
That might be one of the fastest laps we've seen from LMP2 overall.
We'll have a quick look at that on the laptop shortly as well.
But there is movement in the garage, and I don't think either car owes us at this point a pit stop unless they still have an issue with that 32 car, and he's got to come in for another oil top-up.
Well, all things being equal, I've found through this race, this duel, if you like, between Jan van Uytert and Phil Hansen is fascinating. They're the 2 silver drivers. There's a little bit of who's the daddy involved here at United Autosports. Jan van Uytert's first year with the team. Both he and Philip Hansen, undoubtedly at this stage in normal times, would end up being gold-ranked drivers.
Both hands off the wheel there for Phil. Yeah, he's playing around with his belts completely with no hands on the steering wheel. Let's hear what he has to say.
His last lap was a 29.6.
Excuse the language, but Philip Hansen is a little surprised at the pace of the 32 behind. But look, the gloves are going on.
Yeah.
Now, what's he got in his hand? He's got a drill in his hand. Here we are on board with the 22.
So Philip doesn't want to be rattled here. He can clearly see the lights getting closer.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to be rattled. 3.1 seconds, but one of those cars is coming into the pits in a second by the movement in the garage. And I'm going to guess, Peter, on your strategy laptop
that's 32. It has to be.
The 32's only done 5 or 6 laps.
32's done 4 laps.
And the 22?
5 laps.
Yeah, exactly. So neither are owed us a stop. There's something going on at United with the 32 car.
Regardless, though, Phil Hansen does not like the fact that his teammate is so much quicker on the same track. I don't know where they are tyre-wise. Well, no, Hansen's on new tyres. So, no, he's definitely rattled.
Oh.
Iron Lynx 75 smoking in the pit lane. Rino Mastronardi's brought that car in, and that does not look good.
No, it doesn't. That doesn't look good at all. Engine cover off. Never, ever a good thing in a 24-hour race.
Something is very, very hot in there. The driver is out of the car. There is no driver in the car. And it's going up on the hijacks by the looks of things.
Now, this is something we saw for a fair amount of before the Evo version of this car. There were some reliability issues with that turbo V8. But it's not wanting to go up on its jacks either, is it?
Oh, the number 1 mechanic at the front of the car, making sure all the various jacks are in the right place before it goes on the high jacks. And I think the thumbs up was, let's get it up high. So that car is going to be spending a while in the garage by the looks of things. It's 15th position in GT Am as it comes into pit lane. Right, so United Autosports 32 going past the pits with a 1:30.5. That's 3 seconds faster than Philip Hansen. And on this lap, they are going to be absolutely locked together. There they, no, not there they are, not quite. That's the Dragon speed car of René van der Zande in between them. But only 2 seconds separate the two cars. And if they keep chomping away at the gap like that, then by the end of this lap, we'll have a change for the lead. But I'm still concerned about what's going on with that 32 car. Through first chicane goes Philip Hansen, and then into the first chicane comes Job van Uitert. The two United Autosport cars on the lead lap for LMP2, with Anthony Davidson in the Jota just under a minute behind these two after various little maladies at Jota. There is a comparison of the two. 6 laps for Philip Hansen, 5 laps for Job van Uitert. And one of the very few 329s that we've seen so far in this race from the LMP2 category. Through the traffic. Nice clear track ahead of Philip Hansen right now.
75 also reported for speeding in pit lane, which is unfortunate. I don't think that's the first time we've seen that from Rino Mastronardi either. But no, it's Claudio Schiavone, wasn't it? The 60 was much, much, much earlier in the race after the spin in front of us.
The question is, if you're the manager, team manager of United Autosports, what do? Do you say, Phil, he's a couple of seconds quicker than you at the moment, just let him go and follow him, whatever?
I certainly wouldn't want the guys to be taking major risks in the darkness right now. I mean, it's a kind of whole position, maybe. The point is, what we don't know is exactly what are the arrangements here. Remember, the cars are the same colours, but this is commercial as well as anything else. These are 3 guys in the 32 that have trained and have backers that are paid to be here
to win.
And this, they are not being paid to support Phil Hansen.
No, exactly.
They will want to win. And I know these guys, and believe me, all 3 of them are very driven individuals indeed.
Haley is down at the Iron Lynx 75 car, watching a very smoky Ferrari, Haley.
Yes, that's correct. And I have Rino Mastronardi just next to me with all his equipment on, obviously, looking extremely forlorn at the car number 75. Now, Rino, could you just tell us what happened?
I don't know. I was out. Everything was going well. And suddenly, I got all the alarm coming out, and I heard a big hit from the back. And the smoke started to come inside the car, so I had to stop and check before breaking the engine.
Thank you, Rino.
Thank you very much to Rino Mastronardi and Haley.
A fire, effectively. 32, though, in after, what was this, 6 laps, we said?
Right, let's watch exactly what's going on here. Right, so fuel goes in first.
The dolly's there. That car's going in the garage.
Oh, no.
The dolly is being... So look at the mechanic behind the fueler. He's got a dolly in his hand.
This is the car, as you can see, that Alex Brundle has done 6.5 hours in and was so mighty in, both at the start of the race, making amazing passes, and in the night as well. But there is a little niggle going on with that car, which is not allowing them to do more than 6 laps. Philippe Albuquerque was saying it was oil coming out the back of the engine onto his windscreen. Let's find out what they do to the car when it goes into the garage, but that has handed a good advantage to the 22 sister car of Phil Hansen. Rear wheels come off. That's going to allow them to get access to the rear body work that come off. Job van Uitert with the door open. Is he be jumping out the car? Rear wing comes off, rear bodywork comes off. and United Autosports set to work.
Immediately loses second place to the Jota Sport car, and Davidson goes through, is now 62 seconds back from the lead. So we're back into tyre battle time.
Lead car in GT Pro, 97 Aston Martin in. Maxime Martin out of the car.
And had an advantage of just over 10 seconds in the battle between him and the Ferrari, but it does ebb and flow depending on who's got the new tyre on. They're not on exactly the same strategy. There is a slightly cooling down 75 Ferrari, and coming into the pits very smoky was their flame. Rino Mastronardi saying that there may well have been. Brave of them to pump the fuel into it as it was smoking along, but no sign of flame itself. 98 being reported to be relatively slow exiting Arnage. That is Ross Gunn in the Aston Martin, who's dropped behind.
It's not relatively slow, it's very slow.
Yeah.
50 seconds slower in the second sector. That is a very slow.
And dropped behind the 77 Dempsey Proton of Matt Campbell, so has lost second position when we were expecting that car to inherit the lead once Sally Yoluk jumped into the TF Sport.
Suspected oil leak, unsurprising that that's what we're being told. Suspected oil leak on the 32 car, so investigations going on. What they won't want here is if it's losing the level of oil that it seems to be, is for that to cause a fire. That's what they're looking to avoid here, or indeed catastrophic mechanical failure. So they're going to see, I'm guessing, if they can trace where that oil's coming from and see whether or not an easy fix is possible.
They also don't want to be constrained to 6-lap stints as well if they need to come in and top it up every time.
Yeah, so if it is 6-lap stints and that's the only problem, that's a fairly catastrophic oil loss, isn't it?
The mechanics doing their thing.
Taking the time to change the nose as well.
Yep. At the moment, I couldn't see if driver in or out. Number 8, our leading Toyota comes in for a service. A reminder, it had some early maladies, but nothing as bad as half an hour in the pits with a turbo issue for the 7 car, which has put that Toyota down into 4th behind the 2 Rebellions. It was a puncture that the 8 car had, and then a slightly blocked right front brake ducting, which ended up being fully changed under a safety car. 10 minutes in the pits, but they didn't lose too much time.
A period where there seemed to be some dramas. The dolly's out for this car as well. So this is the 98 car. This car's going in the garage too. So we are in a period where all of a sudden all sorts of dramas. Drama that's been spotted by Nicholas Smith on Twitter has befallen the number 91 Porsche. And that car, loss of power steering, has been in for repairs and back out now.
As
but
well.
It's back in again, in fact.
So power steering issue for both the works Porsches.
So the 91 car in for attention to power steering, out, back in again. That's Trevor Foster, who manages the LMP2 program, managing the efforts in the rear of the car. The gentleman with the visible white lanyard. 98 car in the garage, 91 car in the garage. It's Le Mans bingo all of a sudden again.
Amazing race of attrition, as we've been saying before.
Well, yes, and all of a sudden.
So what are they looking at on the Aston Martin? We've got a camera inside the garage here. We've got having a brake, disc and caliper change. Look at how they are prepared to change the whole unit. It's incredible to see.
The point here, though, is that the issue, or are they just doing it because they know they've got to do something else? We saw that, if you remember, with, was it on the Ferraris earlier in the evening?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think it's a job that they were going to do, and they're just getting it done now.
But they're looking at the rear end of.
It's not brakes, is it? It's under the rear of the end of the car.
So they've got concern over, what's that, gearbox around there? Yeah,
that's the kind of area.
And that will take, for the moment, that 98 car out of contention for race victory in GT Am. And really, hand the advantage for the moment to Charlie Eastwood in the TF Sport Aston Martin, who has a 4.5-minute advantage to Matt Campbell in the Dempsey Proton Porsche. That's the 77 car.
So it's now from being, well, convincingly dominant for the Aston Martins.
Max Martin, driver of car number 97 for Aston Martin Racing. So Max, there's a real battle going on up top there with you and the AF Corsa car number 51. Let's tell us from your perspective what it's like.
Yeah, it's good fight. The night is quite long, so it's a big push in the night with the traffic. It's not always easy, but at the moment everything is going well. Car is very good in the night. We are running with the soft tires, and car is running really good. So at the moment, no issues.
Yeah, it seems to really be working for you. I saw you talking to Ludovic from Michelin. What were you saying?
Yeah, because strangely we tried a lot of times the soft tires, and it never really worked for us. And it switched on for the race here this night. So at the moment it's really working well. So really happy with the soft tires actually.
So with a few hours left of the race to go, what's your strategy? Push, push, push?
Yeah, I mean, when you see the gaps, I don't think we have a lot of things we can do except pushing. So we push quite hard. Of course, is pushing hard also. We are a bit offset in strategy with the tire changes. So sometimes they pass us, sometimes we pass them. So it's good. It's a great battle. It's still long. So we keep pushing.
Good to head down to the pits there with Hayley, if a little bit surprising. She managed to turn herself on there. Not quite sure what happened. But just to reiterate his points, Daniel Serra still owes us a pit stop in the AF Course 51 that now effectively leads. Once that pit stop is done, Harry Tinknell will go back into the lead of the race. He's now aboard the 97 Aston Martin.
It's marginal. It's marginal. If there's a full service stop required, it's going to be very close.
There isn't. It's only a short stop.
Ah, right. Okay. So it's going to be fairly close. We're talking, you know, handfuls of seconds. GT Pro has been close through the night. Well, frankly, through the race.
Yeah, the gap, I think when I came back on air, the gap was about 14, 15 seconds. But there is this offset. Interestingly, though, there is an offset in terms of when they're pitting, but they seem to be going now onto the same strategy in that we are the last. Well, no, actually, I lie. The last stop from the Aston Martin was a full service. The next stop from the Ferrari is not a full service, we expect.
Okay.
So,
also watching what's going on in this LMP2 battle on board at the moment. The number 90 TF Sports Aston Martin, and Anthony Davidson is on a charge. He is taking time out of Phil Hansen. That gap is going to be under a minute.
In the pits, James Allen for So24 by Graf.
He's had one heck of a race, hasn't he, that young man?
Yeah, but we did see him have a loop at the second chicane about an hour and a half ago. We were talking him up as he had a little spin.
Is it because you were talking him up?
Probably.
Yeah.
And in fact, Antoine Borger in the Cool Racing in 7th position, also in the pit. So 5th, 6th and 7th in LMP2, all in the pit lane. We've got 2 cars now on the lead lap, with Phil Hansen leading Anthony Davidson by 1 minute. And then a lap down is Panis Racing's Max Vauxivier, and being chased down by Romain Rusinov, the G-Drive car recovering after a throttle sensor issue.
Yeah, that was catastrophic couple of laps, wasn't it, for the 26 car?
And it could have just been 1 lap.
The team not ready is what we're told. My guess, it may be not ready to diagnose what the issue was. They were maybe trying to work it out, but it turned out...
Still trying to turn the computer on.
It was a mistake to leave that car out for another lap, because he had to stop and restart the car 3 times on that lap. And dangerous, quite the car aside from anything else. But so that car that was in contention for the lead, dropping back, but now recovering courtesy of this ongoing problem. Still in the pits, Job van Uitert. The G-Drive car now back up to 4th. nearly, what is that, a minute and 20 seconds, minute and 17 seconds back from the Panis racing car.
Philip Hansen in pits as well, so these are all. Is it early still, Peter? Or are we at the full 10 laps
22.
now?
Phil Hansen?
Yeah.
That can't be 10 laps.